people can filter in, but I don't want to take, I already got a lot of time eaten in. I'm Summer Jane Bell, for those who I haven't met. Thanks so much for coming today, and I'm really, really happy to be part of this conference. I think it's a really special thing that we all get to do here. Happy to be at MVP, I feel very lucky. It's also a really exciting day for me. We've heard that y'all voted me as the National Secretary of the USBG.
Hey!
For trusting me in that important position. I'm really excited about the future, and I just want to tell you all right now, like, I'm always going to be there. Just call me, like, if you have an issue. I want to be that open conduit of communication to make the USBG a better place. So today I'm going to be talking about cocktail photography. I wear many hats. I wear the USBG hat. I have an app called TrophyCocktail, which is a little startup my husband and I developed. It's like photo sharing, like Instagram, but just for cocktails. And I also work for House of Angostura as a brand ambassador. That's my one paying job. And thank you, Angostura. And then actually, but the sponsor for my seminar today is Real, and we're gonna have a really fun shot with the blood orange and Angostura Amaro and bitters, which is about to come out. And then we're gonna have a swizzle towards the end. And the swizzle we're gonna have at the very end because I want you all to take a photo of it. So after you've learned all the wonderful things that in the slide deck, you can use those tools and techniques immediately. And the best photo will get a little special prize from me that I'll send to you, as well as anybody who emails it to me and they want feedback, I'd be happy to critique and offer constructive criticism and feedback.
Can I just text you the photo?
Text me that.
Yeah. Feedback. So let's get into it. I went to art school, like many bartenders, and I actually studied sculpture and glass blowing. But I really enjoyed my first year. I did a lot of painting and drawing, so I know a lot about composition, and all of that really is going to play a lot into this talk. So there's a few of us teaching cocktail photography with your phone. Mine is more geared towards composition, angles, lighting, and those kinds of tricks. How you can set up the shot immediately for success instead of really trying to fix it and spend the time to fix it later. So it's talking about how to set it up beautifully in the beginning. So shooting cocktails is different than other subjects. It's not a portrait, it's not a group of people. There's things that you need to consider that make it different. So the color of the liquid and how it's contrasts to the background. Ice can play a big factor. Sometimes it's a big, gorgeous rock. Sometimes it's crushed ice. Those all affect the way that you're going to shoot it. You either want to upplay the garnish like I did in this photo, or you want to, maybe the glass is more beautiful so that you can play with those elements. The glassware, obviously, this one's got a little bit of an etching, which is pretty. Condensation can work to your advantage, but also work against you. Too much condensation on the glass can make it look kind of sweaty and not really attractive anymore. But just a little bit of condensation makes it look like a real cocktail, so that's something to keep in mind. And the style of the drink really also plays into how you're shooting it, which angle you'll take, what kind of composition you'll play, whether it's a swizzle or it's served in a coupe. All of those things are really important. Just to preempt all of the photos in this deck, I took myself with my iPhone, and I ran through TrophyCocktail editing tools, which is really easy. We're going to talk about that at the end. But that's a cocktail. This is actually my favorite Angostura drink on the menu right now at the Burt Room. It's white oak, mango, and tonic. It's really simple, super, super delicious. So you might have heard of the rule of thirds, but I don't know if everybody really knows what that means. It's a really good composition trick. Basically, if you take a picture and the cocktail is in the center, sometimes it can be a little bit boring unless you've got a lot of other things at play. The rule of thirds is basically the idea is if there's a grid, which you can actually turn on your camera and your settings, turn on the grid lines, and you want the focal point to be where these two lines intersect. And in this photograph, I actually got 2 points of interest, or 2 different areas where the points intersect. So it's just a composition trick. Rule of thirds, this is a picture from the Third Rail, which is a really great cocktail bar in San Francisco. Leading lines are an excellent tool. Instead of just shooting something flat or just on top, creating a sense of depth in the photo is a great composition trick. Menus can also work really well to kind of draw your eye towards the cocktail, which is your focal point. Here, for instance, the word cocktail, the text becomes a diagonal line and a leading line pointing to the cocktail. There's diagonal lines in the bar, which make it more of an interesting composition. It's a really delicious stirred drink. I don't know why it's called the James Bonar, but it is, at the Olympic in San Francisco. So this is also kind of a tour of San Francisco bars, which is interesting. So if you ever come visit me, I'll take you to all these places as well. Negative space, use it to your advantage. I really upped the contrast on this photo so you can really tell what negative space is. It's basically the space around the object or around the focal point. I think this is really pretty. It has a black diagonal line which matches the black background. But a good idea is to always have at least 2/3 negative space around your subject matter, just so it looks balanced. You can go extreme and crop it and make something really interesting too. This is kind of a good general rule of thumb. You can also zoom way out like Kyle Ford does, who is an excellent cocktail photographer as well as photographer in general. If you're not on his Instagram feed, I recommend following him. He's got about 20 or 30,000 followers at this point. But he really dials it back. So there's a lot of negative space around the cocktail. And that it kind of works in the opposite way you would think. It actually makes your eye go more towards the cocktail than it would if it was in a tighter shot. So that's kind of an interesting season. They have a pretty short season to juice them fresh. And this is not from concentrate. I have to plug in my sponsor here just a little bit. And then a couple dashes of bitters in there as well. And I just call this a holiday shot because blood oranges are seasonal in winter and something fun to share. So that's going out now.
What is that? Is that like the napkin with the logo of the bar?
That's part of their menu. Mm-hmm.
So like, do you think that that would help being, say if I'm taking a picture with, for a cocktail competition and I'm using my own phone, should I try to incorporate the logo of the place I work at somewhere in that photo?
I think you can use that to great effect. It kind of depends on the situation. I think if in this instance in particular, the cocktail itself doesn't have a garnish. Thank you. It's really just yellow liquid in a coupe, which is kind of boring on its own. So I thought adding the C from the menu really added a lot of interest to the frame as well. You can imagine if that was just on like a stainless steel surface, it'd be a really boring photo. So sometimes the menu can really add to it, but if you have a busy drink in like a really decorative glass, then it probably detracts.
Okay.
So you kind of want, it depends on your subject matter, but you can use that for sure. And it would also, I think, if I was judging the submissions, it might be really interesting kind of telling a little bit of a story about where you're from, or you're from your bar program. Does everybody have one? Cheers, y'all.
Cheers. Cheers.
Hey, Tampa. Yeah. Moving on. So SYMMETRY is another fun artistic composition tool. 2 drinks are better than 1. I'm lucky that I go out with friends a lot to drink, so I get this opportunity. If you're buying your friends drinks, you get 2 drinks in the frame. And if they're identical, it actually creates a really beautiful balance. And even if it's just slightly off, which is this is, I think that kind of tricks the eye into being even more interesting. It's not directly in the center. But SYMMETRY is a really fun thing to play with. This is Longitude, really cool tiki bar in Oakland. Lucky to call Oakland home. So this is a hangout of mine. Suzanne Long, if you ever met her, she's a great tiki expert.
Would you consider flipping that second drink 180 degrees?
What's that?
Would you consider flipping that second drink 180 degrees? So
sure.
Image?
Yeah, I think that would look great too. If I did that though, I would have to maybe move back a little bit because having the green on the green background would really pop. But if I changed the way that the lines were on the background, I think that'd be totally fun. I mean, you can really do whatever you want. But in this instance, I also don't want to spend 20 minutes setting up the shop. The idea is that, if you have all of these tools kind of in the back of your brain, then you can set up these shots pretty quickly. But yeah, don't beat it to death. I see so many photos on Instagram of TrophyCocktail that have like a crumpled up napkin or, debris from a meal, things in the frame that is really distracting. And especially if you're going to use this for promoting yourself or your bar program in any shape or form, it's really important to think about what's in the background. And it can tell a story. This is a really great rooftop bar in West Hollywood where has kind of a Latin cocktail list, and that is really that story is told through the objects that are on the bar, more so than just the object or the cocktail that's in the glass. So you can really use that to your advantage. Natural lighting is really key. I suggest if you're going to be photographing something for print or something they're going to use for a particular purpose, really try and shoot it in the afternoon. Natural light coming in through a window is really lovely, indirect light, and it's going to be much more difficult to shoot it at night. So if you're going to do something, just plan out, carve out half an hour in the afternoon to do something for promoting yourself. Some professional photographers, if they go into a bar or restaurant, they're going to shoot some drinks, they might like walk around the room and look at their hand and kind of see how the light falls on it, see the shadows, and then use that to kind of choose where they're going to shoot. Like maybe like in this instance, like, oh, there's some cool light over here, I might pick this area. And flashes are just really ineffective, especially for cocktail photography. It really flattens the image, distorts the pixels, especially if you're using a phone. It's just a really terrible idea. But you can always find, some spot in the bar where there is some interesting light to work with. Also flash if you're out in a group or in a nice place that really disturbs the other guests, which is a drag. I'm sure you've experienced that in your own bars. Shadows are a fun composition tool. This is at Pagan Idol, which is the newest tiki bar in San Francisco. Beautiful venue. If you come out, we'll definitely go together. It's gorgeous. I was actually lucky enough to guest bartend there a couple weeks ago for their big appreciation night. It was really fun to get behind that incredible cockpit. So in this instance, they have the great lamps on the tabletops, and I kind of playing with the light here and using the shadow as a nice contrast. It was something fun to play with. Reflected light is another fun artistic tool to consider. This bar has kind of pillars of yellow light, almost like neon, that really reflect a lot onto the bar top. And in this instance, it's a Angostura Fizz, and with the egg white on top, it really shows off that yellow, kind of creates a fun mood, something unique. Whereas before, it might just be an uninteresting drink to shoot. Using the reflective light actually makes it an interesting image. Backlighting can work sometimes. This is a great bar in Oakland called Blind Tiger. They have a really cool tiger on the taps. They have strips of kind of neon, I guess, or underlit light in the bar top. And I've tried, because it's kind of dark in there, I've tried many different styles of cocktails to shoot on top of the little light strip so it shines up. I've found it really only works well with a Collins glass. Doesn't look good with a coupe, I tried it. So this is another good instance where sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't, depending on what the glassware is or what the cocktail's like. But in this instance, I thought it actually created a lot of fun color. And it's a really dark bar, and you're just kind of trying to document it for yourself or for your own social media. You can put a candle behind the drink, but if you're shooting for submitting a cocktail recipe or, for your resume, I wouldn't recommend doing it this way because it's not ideal. But in this instance, it worked pretty well. This is a great bar in Melbourne, Australia. I was lucky enough to go to Australia in March. And Union Electric is really the darkest bar I've ever tried to shoot a cocktail in. But I mostly was just so excited about the vessel. So I was like, I'll just highlight this unique vessel. So it actually worked out pretty good. Neon inside the bar is becoming a new trend. I don't know if you're familiar in your cities, but I see it more and more. And it can be a really fun thing, like you definitely know where I'm at. I'm at Heartbreaker. It says it right on the wall. But it's really difficult to edit. The original photo is at the top, and this is after I ran it through some editing tools and brightened it up. It does help. It's not ideal, but I think it's still kind of a fun photo. It was really hard to see in the original one, my beautiful Fernet slushy, which was so delicious. At least you could kind of see it in the bottom frame. And in every bar, really, you'll find some kind of spotlight. This is a bar in San Francisco called Tradition, which is generally a really kind of high volume, dark, speakeasy style bar, I guess. But they do have little spotlights over these barrels in different parts of the bar. And this is I barely amped up the lighting on this, and I managed to get a really well lit shot at night at that place. You just gotta seek it out. And even if you can't find a good spotlight on the bar or a little corner where there's a nice light, you can run it through editing tools. I use the TrophyCocktail ones more often, but Instagram also, and there's a lot of other editing tools that have brightening aspect, and it makes it way better. You can see the originals at the top. It's really boring and flat and dark. And this one looks like, I know how good those drinks taste, so I'm making me really thirsty. But you know, it draws you and it makes you want to jump in there and drink, just like me. So if you are shooting for something specific that you're going to use for something specific, these are some really good things to keep in mind. You know, drinks can change, so it's really a good idea to set up the shot ahead of time as much as you can before you make the drink and bring it somewhere. Once the glass gets a lot of condensation or gets foggy, it's not going to be as gorgeous to shoot. Foams go flat, you know, everything, a drink will look dead. You know what dead drinks look like, right? So you don't want to be photographing your dead drink, you want to photograph it when it's alive and fresh. So I really like, if I'm going to do something specific, I'll set up the shot first with like a glass of water, or even like if I'm going to do a coupe cocktail, then I'll just, you know, put the coupe there. Try and do it with the same glass if you can, and you can do that if you're at your bar, or even if you're at home and you know what glassware you're going to use for the specific shot. And then, you know, try a few different spaces in the bar, like find where the best lighting is. Kind of get all that dialed in first. Get your garnish ready, like ready to place on, all done, and then make the drink. Take it exactly to where you want it. You got it all dialed, and you know which angles you're going to do and everything, and then shoot it. I really recommend, you'll save yourself a lot of time. And try several different spots. You'll be surprised if you do have the time and it's something important. You can actually do a really well composed and well shot photo on your phone for something, even for print, if you think about these things ahead of time. Shooting tips. Really simple. Just clean your lens. How dirty is your lens? Right? It's just really easy. You can even go like that. Like, just make sure that it doesn't have, you know, schmutz on there, and it'll make a huge difference. It's a really simple. I didn't have a good slide for a foggy lens, so I thought I'd just plug in the new Angostura Tiki Bug here. If you're interested in getting some of your bar program, let me know, or let David Delaney know on the East Coast. This is a new tiki bar in Sacramento. If you ever come out to California, it's called the Jungle Bird. It's really cool. Zoom really doesn't work. It's great to have an interesting cropped shot like this. Start large, and you can always crop it later. Zooming in really makes the shot grainy. You know, if you're far away, move yourself closer. If you want something unique and cropped like this, I thought the garnish was so interesting, I really wanted that to be large in the frame. I totally edited it and cropped it all that afterwards. Yeah, just crop later. Focus is fun. You can actually, there's some focusing tricks that you can do on your phone that you might not be aware of, maybe you are. But here I just touched the spot where the front rim of the glass was, and you can see how it makes that menu kind of out of focus and further away. It looks like a real camera shot, really, but I just did it with my phone. I always try that first. I'll touch on the front lip of the glass, see how that looks. If it's a detailed menu, or like for instance, the drinks that I took pictures of that you might have seen on Facebook last night that I posted from the seminars yesterday, I wanted to get the tasting mat in focus. So in that instance, I didn't focus on the glass. I actually focused on, you know, the Jägermeister deer or whatever it was from yesterday. And then the glass doesn't go totally away, but just be aware that you can create that push and pull that draws the eye to the front or draws the eye. Whatever's most in focus is going to be the focal point. Really easy to focus if you're steady. I recommend not trying to take pictures of cocktails when you're wasted. That's an easy one. But I also like to, you know, use the table of the surface of the table to kind of steady myself, especially if I'm doing a shot like this one where I was kind of looking up at the bartender. I really wanted to get, you know, the wood above and the wood below, I think frames the shot really well. So having it on an angle, using the table surface as to steady me as this was kind of progressing through the night, I thought that worked really well. You can also get, you know, these little Gorilla tripods are pretty cheap. If you're going to be, photographing like a lot of shots for your bar, for instance, that might be a good investment. They're not expensive. Another trick for focusing that I learned from a photographer friend is you can almost kind of even use your arm that might be a little bit more steady than two hands.
Especially when you've been drinking all night.
That's right. So lots of different angles, and play around with that. You know, a lot of people just always just do 45-degree angle, boom. And if that's the only pictures in your social feeds of cocktails are always the same angle, that's kind of boring. There's a lot of different things you can do, and depending on the glassware, depending on the setting, depending on the style of drink, one angle might be better than the other. You know, I find tall glasses are really difficult to shoot. Sometimes like a straight on kind of 90-degree angle, like this swizzle in the top left, is really effective. In that mule, I really loved the dill garnish, the dill flower the most, so I definitely wanted to do an overhead angle in that instance. I really love the lines. This is a bar in Los Angeles called, what is it called? Here's Looking at You. I love that name. Beautiful kind of zebra striped top, but I thought having a 45-degree angle in that instance would work really well. And then in the bottom left, there was a really kind of unattractive happy hour crowd, and I did not want to get them in the frame. So I thought, you know, shooting underneath the drink and really focusing on the lanterns in the ceiling was a much prettier background than this really unattractive kind of suit-wearing happy hour crowd. So it really depends on the setting. And I think that, you know, you can use it for fun. Try different things is the whole idea here. Putting people in your drink is really fun, and I'm sure you have friends that take pictures of you when you're behind the bar. How awkward is that when you're standing up? I mean, it just doesn't look good, right? So everybody, if you want to get in the shot with your cocktail, learn how to squat like this, right? And it's good exercise. I recommend that. I love taking pictures of my friends drinking. And I like to have pictures taken of me drinking, but I've noticed like really only very young, youthful friends like this look great sucking on a straw often. You get a very wrinkly forehead. That's a subject tip, but so I'm always careful with that. But that's always fun, and I love taking pictures of friends competing. I think it's just really wonderful. They love it because they can't take a picture of themselves when they're competing. So putting people in the frame is a great way to take a picture of the drink and make it more interesting. And I'm really hoping, especially on TrophyCocktail, that our users start putting more people in the frame as well. So, does anybody have any questions about composition or angles, lighting, focus? Yes?
Not necessarily on that, but I was just like, I'm like maybe going back to Ian's seminar, like how much, sorry, no, sorry. How much emphasis, no, but based on what you're talking about, like how much emphasis is like on this picture you submit, in your opinion, like for cocktail competitions? So say if I email my recipe,
Yeah.
my directions, my pictures.
I got a really quick answer for this.
Okay.
If they're asking for a photo, it's hugely important.
Okay.
A lot of competitions don't ask for a photo. TrophyCocktail is now helping a lot of brands do cocktail competitions, and I always ask for a photo. It does two things. It proves that you've actually made the drink before. I mean, how many times have you entered a competition? This looks great on paper. You know, these are very trendy ingredients. That looks like a decent ratio, and then they never even try it until they get accepted into the comp. So it prevents that from happening. But people also want to know what your garnish looks like. They want to look how professional you are. And these tips will all make a huge difference. You can take great cocktail recipe submissions, photos on your phone. If I'll send you the deck so you have all these notes.
Awesome.
And then you can have that all in mind. Any other questions about composition, shooting? Yes?
I've noticed, it might just be for the slides, are you a big, like square format? Is that your thing?
Yeah. Probably because TrophyCocktail is a square format.
Is it all square format?
It is.
Cool.
I don't know if Instagram isn't anymore,
You
but
can still shoot in square and then upload it in square format in Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, I like square format just because I shoot like with a Hasselblad, so like I like
Yeah.
that 6x6 look.
Mhm.
Excuse me, what the hell square format
The
is?
square format is that.
Instead of a rectangle.
Square.
So this would be like the landscape when it's a rectangle this way, portrait, or just a square frame.
Upright, or versus.
No, just how this is a square. That's all that means. This is a square instead of a rectangle or a circle or an oval.
So they're James
And you can only put a round thing in a round hole. Like, let's move on. Any other square pegs?
In terms of taking a quick photo though,
Yes.
what should you have set up beforehand? Because you know those people who are in bars, it's like 5 minutes setting it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how can you not be that person?
Great question. Maybe when if you're planning on taking a picture, say you're going to Goto or Mace or somewhere really cool, or in San Francisco, you're going to Tradition or Bourbon Branch. When you walk in the bar, instantly scan for where the light is. And when you order your drinks, just excuse yourself from your friends really fast. You can even pretend you're going to the bathroom if you're like that shy about it.
With
Take
your
the
cocktail.
drink- Yeah, with your cocktail. Just take your drink over there, know where the light is already. That's the key you just found, really, is knowing where the light is, especially if you're out in the evening. And then I always recommend, getting in there. If you practice a lot, like if you get in the habit of taking pictures of drinks, like I've gotten a lot better over the last 3 years taking pictures of drinks. My cocktail photos did not used to look like this. So you get in the habit of like, it's a coupe, there's the light, I think I'm gonna do a 45-degree angle. I've got the grid set up on my camera so I know where the rule of thirds is. I put the middle of the coupe in the top corner and I'm done. Once you kind of get it more into the habit, this will become more second nature. But yeah, it is distracting, and probably a lot of my friends don't like me because I take a lot of cocktail photos when we go out, but they're used to it now. Cool. Yes?
So how do you feel about using a flash in the dimly lit cocktail bar, and what is the staff's reaction during service?
Staff never likes it. That's a no-brainer. If you have a real camera, then use a flash. And if you have a real camera, the bar staff probably knows that you're there to take a real photo that you're probably going to put in print or something, or you help them promote their business. So there would be less of an issue there. Camera on your phone, the flash never looks good, so just don't do it. That's what I would recommend.
What about a friend with their iPhone holding it?
Sometimes that's effective, but I still think it looks kind of flat. It's never going to look. It's not a warm incandescent light. Your flashlight on your phone is quite cool. So I feel like it adds too much contrast. I'd much rather and a lot of these photos I took in the dark and then I amped it up in editing. I think that's way better. Friends still come over like, oh, because I take a lot of pictures of cocktails, and let me do the flashlight trick. I'm like, get away with it. No. Because I can really fix it afterwards very simply with brightening it in an editing tool. I think that's more effective. Cool, I'll move on. So editing with TrophyCocktail I find is the easiest way. So this is my app. This is all the same tools really as Instagram or other editing, photo editing suites, and there's a lot of apps out there to edit pics. But I really like the TrophyCocktail suite because it's super fast to use. So you can see this is actually from Mary's Bar, Paper Plane in San Jose. Where she works. And this is a super delicious drink. And this is a really cool menu format that they just came out with, which I love because you can see the logo of the bar in the background. So you can see the original at the top left. So I just amped the brightness, contrasting highlights and shadows really quickly with a slider. So it's all in one place, where in Instagram you have to do all of those things with individual buttons. And then I just hit food. And that's, these 5, I guess they're kind of like filters, but the food one I really love because it kind of darkens the edge of the frame, which makes it look kind of more like a professional photo on a real camera, and it just amps up the color concentration instantly. So I don't have to worry about, I find filters can sometimes be too extreme, and this still looks fairly natural, but it just looks so much better, and it's really fast. In this instance, I thought the cocktail was a little bit askew, so I did use the orientation toggle just to make the cocktail straight, but often I don't even have to do that. So like last night, I edited the photos that I took here in the seminars yesterday through TrophyCocktail, and then posted them later on other social platforms, but I like this because it's just really fast, and I was tired, so I wanted to do it quickly last night and create a nice post in a timely fashion that this is just, I find the easiest way to do it, is running it through the Trophy Cocktail suite. And another thing that's neat, even if you didn't want to post this photo on Trophy Cocktail at the time, maybe it's a drink that on a menu you haven't launched yet, but you're kind of preemptively getting these pics ready for something. It's stored locally. You don't have to post it. It'll be stored on your phone. As soon as you hit done or apply and then done, it doesn't get you all the way to the end of posting it, but it stores it. So that can be really a helpful tool. So actually, I run all kinds of photos through Trophy Cocktail, photos of my friends, photos of parties. I'm not necessarily going to put them on the app, but I just find that the editing suite is really quick. Instagram is really comprehensive too. This is the same photo edited on both apps. They both look great. I think I really like the structure one on Instagram, but it's much more time intensive. So the neat thing about Trophy Cocktail is that you can share with Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest. So you can use that and then share it out pretty easily. But that's, you can get a very similar effect. There's lots of editing tools, and I just copied and pasted this from an article that I found on a tech website. I haven't used many of these. There are some that are free, there are some that are not. It's always like a learning curve, kind of getting into a new suite. So I haven't tried these, but if you're interested, there are more options. Visco is a pretty popular one, but I find their filters are really nice and subtle, which can be great, but I don't think they work great for cocktails in bars. They're really nice for like people, for scenery. It kind of gives it a bit more of a modern look. But I personally think for cocktails in bars, I really need to adjust the lighting more than you can on Visco. So even though a lot of their tools and their filters are free, I personally still think it's ideal for what we're talking about today. You can get Photoshop on your phone too, but I find I use Photoshop a lot on my computer, but it's just a little kludgy on the phone. It's not quick for me. Is anybody going to go back and make the other cocktail? I was going to point to somebody. I'm not going to tell them. Do you mind telling them? Because we're going to get almost to the end. So here's some just general tips. If I'm going to take a picture and I'm at the bar and it's not busy and the bartender, if it's a fancier place, usually general rule of thumb, I always just mention it. I'll ask. I'll be like, because I also often go out by myself as a brand ambassador, and I go to like 25 bars a week. So often, and I take pictures everywhere I go. I do get a lot of practice. But I usually ask the bartender, I know I'm a real nerd, but I'm taking a picture of your drink, it's so beautiful. And the bartender is always like, awesome, But if you just let them know, then I find, then it's not a surprise, and they're not like, oh, what are you doing, And it doesn't disrupt their, their program or their rhythm. Be discreet, and to get the most traction on that cocktail pick, and to get the bar and the bartender and the brands to like you the most, it's pretty easy to tag them when you're sharing it on social media. So do keep that in mind. And like I said, I really like to use Trophy Cocktail, and then push it out through the other social platforms. I did a cute SED talk at Tails this year with Philip, and I talked more about sharing on social platforms. And just a quick tip, like Instagram shares it exactly the same on every other social platform. The neat thing about Trophy Cocktail, it's customized, so it's a different sharing sentence is pulled into Twitter than it is when it goes to Facebook or to Pinterest, because all of those audiences are very different. Not only are there character limitations in Twitter, but you also want to pull in the bar's Twitter handle instead of just their bar name. And Trophy Cocktail does that, so that's kind of neat. If you have any questions about the app, I'd love to talk about it in the next couple days, but I find that's really effective. So here's the two drinks. This is the swizzle that we're going to get, which I'm excited because I'm thirsty. That's coming out soon. Swizzle, swizzle. And the idea is that I'd love everybody, before you take a sip, I know this is going to be really hard.
Oh, man.
I know. But before you take a sip, quickly find a fun spot in the room, out in the hallway, wherever you want, and think about these composition tricks that I taught you earlier in the slide talk, and come up with a cool idea. I actually had a great luck shooting on these tabletops yesterday. This is kind of a nice surface actually. For a conference room, it's pretty nice. So take into consideration the shape of the glass, where the garnish is, if you want to highlight that or not, diagonals, angles, lighting, contrast, and composition, and the rule of thirds. Yes?
Is TrophyCocktail available on Android or just iPhone?
Both.
Where?
We're working on a new Android build right now, so it's more updated in iPhone. The only difference is that iPhone is now sharing with Instagram, and Android is almost there. So we're still working on that build. It's always we launched the app about a year and a half ago now at Tails, and we have users all around the world. It's kind of fun. I think the second most prolific bar on there right now is in London, so it's kind of fun. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Cool, well hopefully we'll get a drink. No, let's not do that. And if you want, once you take the photo, you can either text it to me, you could Facebook message it to me, or most ideally, email it to me. And that's my email address. And if you took any cool pictures of the slide talk, please hashtag them, TrophyCocktail, and of course the conference hashtag. That's my Instagram handle. And it's pretty easy to find me on social media. But please, if we're not already friends on Facebook, let's do that. Yay! So I kind of use that as my Rolodex. It's really great to reach out to people, especially if you only see them a couple times a year. It's a really good, effective thing. Who has TrophyCocktail? Raise your hand. A couple of you, that's awesome. Who's heard of it but hasn't downloaded it yet? Just curious. Cool. On the app? Oh, on being secretary? Thank you. Yeah, I actually submitted this seminar to the Western Regional Conference. I wasn't sure if I was going to be going to the other ones by the time the seminar submission deadline was before the winners were announced. But now, being on the national board, I might have the opportunity to come to other regions for their regional conferences. And if you think your members might be interested in something like this or something on social media, I love to teach. So yeah, I'd love to do this talk with your members as well. And another little plug for my sponsor, the passion fruit syrup that's coming out in the cocktail is really delicious. But more than that, I really like working with them because Bill Nickebine is a really, really nice guy, and he loves working with the USBG. And he was so amped to work with us for our Western Regional Conference when I hosted it in San Francisco last year. And then we were in Hawaii this year. And I helped him kind of connect with some of the other regions, and none of the other regions wanted to work with them. I know their ingredients might not scream craft cocktail, but they have money to spend, and they're really excited to work with us. They're really excited about the USBG, and Bill emailed me. He's like, only the West wants to work with me again this year. I was like, oh.
That's the same guy that was at National?
Yeah. Yeah, he sponsors, and he was sponsored here last year for Tampa Bay Repeal Day, so he's a really great person to work with. He really wants to work with you guys. So if you would like his contact info, I'd love to share. He's not here, unfortunately, he's got other plans, but he's really a really wonderful person to know, and really supportive, very supportive of the USBG. Cool. Hopefully, so we can take pictures of our drink. I ended on time even though I started late.
That's cool.
Who is a USBG leader? Almost everybody, yeah. Of chapter? Who's on the council of their local chapter?
What's up? I'm not sure yet.
Not sure yet?
Not sure yet.
I know, I can't wait. Hopefully we'll find out tomorrow. Yeah. Like cool chair positions? Well, that's great.
Now, the New Orleans chapter created some different positions for other people, so we all have the we have big positions.
Awesome. More hands make lighter work.
2017 Southern Conference, New Orleans.
Oh, I'm definitely going that one. I'm putting my hat into that one for sure. I'm excited, really excited.
What do you think?
That's another interested. The gentleman down here asked how, Josh asked, I'm just answering a question, maybe other people might be interested in the answer. Josh asked, what does it look, how do I feel about bottles in the shot? Which is a great question. Sometimes it's effective and sometimes it's not. I know that's not a great answer, but I find, even as a brand ambassador, I get sick of looking at other brand ambassadors' photos where the bottle's always in the shot. I think sometimes it gets repetitive and cheesy. I would much rather tag the brand name on the post itself, where it actually links to their website or links to their Facebook page or links to their Instagram account, and give them credit that way, than put the bottle in the shot. Some people like to line up all of the ingredients, and then put the cocktail in front. It might be their specific style. It could be cool. Souther always does that. He's an avid user on the app. But he always puts every ingredient. That's cool. It's his style. But I don't know. I think there's other ways to play with composition that I think are more interesting.
Well, going back to that cocktail competition submission,
Sure.
What about the bottle? Of the brand that you're using?
They'd probably dig that. In that situation, that would probably be effective. Yeah, but it is definitely going to affect your composition, because especially if your drink is in a coupe or in a rocks glass, and then the bottle is really tall, that's automatically making the frame a lot bigger. Yeah. Swizzle time!
Yeah, and a guitarist.
Thanks.
And a cool guy. And a band.
So a general tip before I take a photo of the cocktail, I'll cheers with my friends. Maybe take a baby bird sip to be polite and not get bad, 7 years of bad sex, whatever that is. But ideally you want to take a picture when it's looking its best, which means it's full. So go ahead and take pics. Feel free to move around the room and then send them over to me.